guys, welcome back to my channel. I just finished filming the no disclaimer tag, which will be up by the time you see this video, so definitely go look at it if you haven't already. I also thought I had filmed this video, but when I was finished, I noticed my phone had not been recording. But that's okay, because that just means I'm more prepared. The tag that I'm doing today is to all the books I've loved before, created by Frankinessence. I am so sorry if I mispronounced your name. She created this tag based on, obviously, the book and now movie To All the Boys I've Loved Before. When I saw it, I knew I had to film this. So, you know the drill, let's get into the video. So, basically what you're doing for this tag is picking 5 books based on Lara Jean's 5 crushes. The first one is Kenny from Camp, aka your first book love. I know you are probably so sick and tired of me mentioning this book. I promise that after this video, I will not mention it for at least 2 videos. And that is The Iron King by Julie Kagawa. This book was my first love. It was the first real book series that I got into. It was definitely the first book that I truly fell in love with and picked up every book afterwards. I picked this up in 7th grade and I remember loving the story. Up until that point, I had been reading mostly Nancy Drew and Fear Street books. I had never read anything with fairies or magic or talking cats. I had never really experienced a fantasy book. This was really refreshing for me as a 7th grader. It was just a really fun read for me. I truly can say this was my first book love. Sorry guys, I'm looking a little rough, but I am going to cut in here. As I was editing, I realized that although I had been raving about The Iron King and Splintered, I hadn't really given you guys a synopsis or a summary about what these 2 books were about. Excuse this roughness, okay guys? The Iron King follows 16-year-old Megan Chase as she discovers she is a half Fae. On top of that, her half-brother Ethan has been kidnapped by one of the Fae. Although she's not sure who, she knows 100% it was someone in the Never Never, or fairy world. So without giving it a second thought, Megan and her best friend Robbie, who actually turns out to be Puck from A Midsummer Night's Dream, together they go into the Never Never on the journey to save her brother Ethan. Of course, it's not all simple, as it never is with these fantasy stories. While there, she discovers more secrets about herself and her family, as well as secrets of the Never Never. There is a new king emerging that no one is aware of. They are on the brink of war, but of course, no one ever listens to the half-human girl. On this journey, she becomes acquainted, not really allied, but she becomes acquainted with a sassy talking cat named Grimalkin, as well as a brooding fairy winter prince. This book is definitely not super original. I will be the first one to admit that. It is full of tropes that we've all come to see in one way or another in other fantasy books, but I thought it was a really good read. It was an easy read, and it was the first book that I fell in love with, which is why I think I will always love it and have a place for it in my heart. Question number 2. John Ambrose McClaren, aka The Book That Got Away. A book that may not be your all-time favorite now, but you will always love it. I actually don't have the physical copy of this book anymore. I don't know what happened to it. I just know I tried to locate it and it was nowhere to be found. But regardless, the name of this book is Secret by Pseudonymous Bosch. It was a really quirky magical realism middle grade book. It was very funny. Like I said, it was quirky. The writer broke what I would call the 4th wall of reading. He would directly communicate with the reader. He had little footnotes at the end of the pages, just with additional commentary about what was going on in the story. It was a 5-book series. I only ever read the first simply because although I really loved the first one, books 2 through 4 just weren't as fun. Eventually I did lose interest in the series. I feel that I could say with certainty that if I reread the first book, the name of this book is Secret, I would probably still really enjoy it just because I do have fond memories and emotions attached to that book. It was definitely a fun book and I want to experience that again. Question 3, Lucas from Homecoming AKA your gay best friend. Your favorite LGBTQ plus character or book. I am a little ashamed to say, well, not ashamed, but a little embarrassed to say that I have not read many books with LGBTQ plus characters in them. I know Love, Simon was a big one. A movie just came out earlier this year, I think. I haven't read that. I am going to sort of, in my opinion, I feel like I'm cheating because this character, her sexuality is not really touched upon. But my favorite LGBTQ plus character would have to be, by default, but I do really love her, would have to be Moore from A Court of Wings and Ruin. I picked this book because I do believe it's not until book 3 that Moore confesses to Feyre that she is a lesbian, and it's the reason why she could never reciprocate Az's feelings. Again, it's just by default. She's the only LGBTQ plus character that I know, but I do really love her. I think she's a real badass, honestly, having gone through everything that she was put through, and to come out still caring about people, being able to care and trust people. I think she is so extremely brave for that. I do hope that in the spin-off series, Sarah J. Maas does talk more about Moore's sexuality. I hope to see her come out to her friends and family who she cares about so much and who care about her so much. Question 4, Josh Sanderson AKA The Book Next Door. A book that you'll love no matter how many times you read it, Splintered by A.G. Howard. I could have picked The Iron King again, honestly, but I wanted to add a little variety into this. It is definitely a book that I will always be able to enjoy no matter when I read it. I will still feel all the emotions as much as I did when I read it for the first time. I don't think there can ever be a time where I read this book and I don't like it. Splintered, on the other hand, follows the story of Alyssa Gardner, who is a direct descendant from Alice Little. Yes, the Alice who traveled down the rabbit hole in the classic Alice in Wonderland. Since Alyssa hit puberty, she has been able to hear the voices of the bugs and plants. Of course, she doesn't tell anyone for fear of becoming like her mother, who has been locked in an insane asylum for years with no cure or explanation why. These are not the two only cases of delirium that Alyssa's family has experienced. Since Alice Little, all of the females in the family have been plagued by some kind of paranoia, some kind of madness. Through a series of turn and events, Alyssa comes to find out that it's not some kind of illness that affects the females in her family, but rather a curse that has been placed on the female descendants of Alice Little. In order to rid her future descendants of this curse and also save her own mother from electroshock therapy, Alyssa has to travel into Wonderland to right Alice's wrongs. How she gets there and how she rights these wrongs is for you to find out when you read Splintered. It definitely is a much more complex book than The Iron King, and it took me about 2 or 3 reads before I fully understood what was happening in the ending. And finally, lastly, is Peter Kavinsky, aka your one true book love. Although I said I didn't want to repeat very much, this technically isn't a straight up repeat, but it is a part of one of the series that I mentioned. Take your guesses now. Is it a book from the Iron Fey series or the Splintered series? It is The Iron Queen by Julie Kagawa. It is the 3rd book in the Iron Fey series and my absolute favorite book. I know Alex mentioned in her most recent video, I believe, about getting out of a reading slump. One of the solutions she offered was to reread one of your favorite books, and this could not be more true for this book. Whenever I am in a reading slump, I go to this book. Whenever I'm feeling sad, I go to this book. So this book definitely just cheers me up again. It reminds me why I love reading so much. The characters that I grew to love and adore throughout the series finally come together to work as one in this book. There is not a happy ending in this book, but it does set up for book 4, and regardless, I still really freaking love this book, and it still makes me smile. I actually still cry, not sob, but I shed a couple tears every time I get to a specific scene. And I shed tears every time. I've read it, I don't know how many. I read this in junior high. I am now 20, turning 21, and I still shed tears. That's how much this book still touches my soul. It will forever be my Peter Kavinsky. So that's it to this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed learning more about the books in my life. Kudos to Frank Nessence for creating this tag. I think it's so unique and so fun. Take a look down in the description box to see who I've tagged to do this video. My name is Elle. I love the Iron Fae series, and I'll see you in next time's video.